I've been in post since 2007. I'm the only epilepsy nurse specialist in this role at Kingsmill Hospital. I've audited the role since I started, and year on year seen growth in that role, particularly around the telephone service. I have around 300 children in my service, and I've probably met around 250 of them. I'm hopeful that if you picked a name out of a hat, I'd be able to tell you something about that child. It's perhaps not always about their epilepsy, though. That personal service for me is really important, and having the opportunity to have a prolonged relationship with that family over time is really beneficial from a quality point of view. Been available to offer clarity and support and education, been a listening ear, and quite often finding that piece of the puzzle that makes sense of everything is really important to me and the families and young people. I've never struggled to see the value of the service that we provide as epilepsy nurse specialists, but from a business point of view, sometimes that has been questioned. I can understand that as well, because there's a lot of work around the quality of the service for epilepsy nurse specialists, but very little about the economic value. And when the service is commissioned, the nurse often isn't, there isn't any economic value specifically around the nurse. If you look at my clinic attendance, that's really low, and that's the only thing that generates an income for my service, and it's perhaps the smallest part of the work that I do. The lack of economic evidence means it's difficult for those working outside the service to understand the value of it, and that's been my experience. And then we find as a service where we're presented with redeployment to other areas and sometimes disestablishment as well. And that was topical among many of my colleagues and led towards this piece of work. I was approached following a conference by the RCN Leadership Program and the Roald Dahl Marvellous Children's Charity to take part in this initiative. So we could demonstrate economic value with the role. It was a 6-month programme. We did some face-to-face work, virtual coaching, and support and information sharing via the wiki. And the course was laid out by the HM Treasury Green Book, which was a mystery to me entirely. But it did introduce the key concepts regarding stakeholders, direct and indirect cost, and different economic approaches. And we looked at the service from the ground up, and I'd already decided that I was an absolute bargain, because all the things that were there that I needed, as in an office, internet service, telephone service, were all already there. That wasn't anything extra that the trust needed to provide for my service. And I talk at length generally about my Nokia phone that I had for many years as part of this service. And at the bargain price of a band 6, I felt they were getting their shopping from Harrods, but paying Aldi prices for it. So I thought I was an absolute bargain.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. The best analysis, what's the word I'm looking for? The best model, that's the word I'm looking for, to look at my service was the cost avoidance analysis. So to do that, I did a retrospective review of my diary and looked at telephone contacts. It was quite a slow 3 months because I only had 250 calls that month. And I looked at what would happen if I wasn't available. So where would that telephone concern go if I wasn't able to answer the phone and manage it? And that might be, well, we decided the majority will go to the personal assistant, and then she would put them to the consultant, and that might mean a telephone call back or an outpatient's appointment. Some families might have lost patience and gone to their GP, and the GP might refer them back because it's a specialist service for specialist advice, and other children might attend ED. Of course, all these are assumptions and they were guided by my knowledge of the families, but I checked those assumptions at the regional meeting of nurse specialists and also with the consultant and the personal assistant that I work with. And we looked at the costing of them attending, getting their concerns dealt with in a different way. As I said, this was quite a slow 3 months, and from previous audits I demonstrated that I spend about 18 hours a week on the telephone, which is just less than 50% of my working week. So the figures, if I had managed the concerns, the cost to the trust would have been over the year £21,790. And the cost avoided is a lot of money, isn't it? I'm a bargain. And the second part of the study was looking at a case study. The child I chose, we've known since she was 9, and she was 12 at this point. She hadn't had any difficulties prior to presenting at emergency department with a prolonged convulsive seizure. Following that, she hadn't had more than 8 weeks seizure freedom in all the time following that diagnosis, and had difficulties in every other area of her life because of this. I regularly spoke to the family 2 or 3 times a week, and those telephone calls covered all sorts of different topics. I looked at a 2-week period and I had 6 telephone contacts with that family. And again, I looked at where they would get their care if I wasn't available and the potential cost of the family accessing other services. And over that 2-week period, the potential cost of their getting their care elsewhere was £1,223. The difficulty with accessing the care elsewhere as well is I think as a nursing service we offer an extra layer. So when we're phoned with seizure activity, we're not just talking about managing their medicine, we're talking about their first aid, we're talking about their sleep monitoring, we're talking about other things that epilepsy impacts on. If they were getting their care elsewhere, quite often that just the problem they present with is dealt with, and then all those other things aren't touched on. But 197 minutes of my time saves the trust £1,138. I like that slide. The conclusion demonstrates that there is a clear economic value of the epilepsy nurse service. As I've already said, there is a wider benefit to that service being there. And from a financial perspective, that wider benefit is it allows the trust to use all its other services in the best possible way. It assists with the 18-week wait, and all the other user quality benefits are underpinned by that service. From a personal perspective, I think it's given me the ability to view my service in a different way. It's been quite a powerful piece of work. It's made me feel stronger. But having said that, being part of a team that's knowledgeable and caring and determined to offer the best care we can to our children and continue to improve that, for me, is priceless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. I think we all agree that you are an absolute bargain.